I'm absolutely delighted to be able to host this panel today, and as you can see from the title slide, we're looking at digital support for learners and job seekers. And I just wanted to contextualise that in the sense of the keynote. But before I do that, I'd like to say a big thank you on behalf of the CDI to Launch Your Career for their role as national sponsors for TechFest. And go and check them out. What they're doing some amazing things with virtual reality. So pop along to the expo area, have a look at them and the other organisations that are supporting this event as well. I know they'll all be looking to welcome you with open arms in this virtual exhibition space we've got. Talking about things virtual, it's never good to stick in a silo. So can I give a shout out for the CDI, the Twitter hashtag for this, and that's hashtag CDI TechFest. Hashtag CDI TechFest. Please let's spread the word about the wonderful work that we're all doing and how technology is enabling us to do that. That's part of promoting the profession that I think we all are duty bound and want to promote as well. So just waiting to see how we do. Up to about 70 now, so a number of people are starting to flock in. So I'm just going to contextualise a little bit from this morning's session. I don't know how many of you were in the keynote this morning from National Careers Service and the Careers and Enterprise Company, but there were some themes that came out around increased self-service, around personalisation, interactivity / gamification-ish, possibly, or moving towards gamification. Chatbots, real-time LMI, developing career management skills online. And of course, all of this is in the context of COVID as an accelerator, as a digital accelerator. We were already heading that way, weren't we? We had Industry 4.0 automating furiously. Maybe hadn't quite reached as much of the careers sector as it certainly has now, as COVID has really pressed the fast forward button for us. And along the way, highlighted some digital poverty and digital skills issues as well, which I think we might come on to later. Just to outline how we're going to run this today, as you can see, we have a panel of experts in front of us. We're going to take a presentation from each of them for about 20 minutes in turn. By all means, put questions for them in the chat as they go. Each speaker will pick up in the bit when they're not talking. They'll come back and see what they need to pick up on. And I'll be keeping an eye for some major themes as well along the way. And that's what we're all going to explore with the panel after the third presentation. So 3 20-minute sessions and then an open Q&A, picking up on those themes. And if you have specific questions for individual presenters along the way, please drop them in the chat box, because they are all here to help and share their knowledge and expertise, and we're very, very pleased to have you here. Thank you very much for coming along. My thanks go to, and I'm going to ask them just to put their hand up in a minute for obvious reasons, seeing as how we have 2 Davids, and I don't want to keep having to use surnames because it seems such an unfriendly thing to do. I'm going to start with our, just to say our first speaker today is Alan, who is going, thank you Alan, is going to be accompanied by David Hurd. David next to him on my screen, probably not on yours, so I won't do that a second time. And then David and Alan are going, well, Alan in particular is going to talk about what they've been doing digitally, particularly from the point of view of looking after people who are out of work and looking at the employability side of it, giving you some insight on data and how they've worked with job seekers. And then we're going to move on to Safraz, who's going to talk about things from, hi Safraz, welcome. He's going to talk about things from his perspective, working in Leicester College and FE. So we've got an FE perspective as well. So unemployed first, FE perspective, and then last but by no means least, we're going to go on to David from Scotland. I'm doing it again, thanks for the rugby. The proud Welshwoman. David from Scotland, who is from Skills Development Scotland, is going to give us a home nations, a national view on what the National Career Service of Scotland is doing. So those are what we have in terms of people presenting today and sort of flavour of activities that they're going to be covering. Just to remind you, the Twitter hashtag CDI TechFest. Please tweet merrily through this and help people understand how tech is helping you. This is the sort of thing, if you add in hashtag We Are Careers, those who follow the We Are Careers hashtag, which is the CDI's own hashtag, will be able to see what's going on. The private practitioners may have wanted to join in there. So, welcome, a very warm welcome to you all, and welcome to the nearly 100 people that have joined us this afternoon for this debate. It's absolutely lovely to see such an engaged panel and audience already. So I'm going to move swiftly on to introduce Alan, and David, David H. So Alan is the Chief Digital and Information Officer at Igneus, quite a stellar individual, in the top 100 Chief Information Officers in the UK, and I know is driven by Igneus's mission, which is about helping people realise their potential. So he's joined by David from Abtegro, which is the platform that Alan's organisation uses. So I'm going to hand over to you to tell us more about this employability perspective, how you've been helping job seekers, and a little bit of data insights that you've had as well. Over to you, Alan and David.
Thank you, Caroline. We've got some slides to share.
Thanks, Caroline, for the introduction. And I'm sure the screens will be up very, very shortly. And Alan and I will take a nice conversational approach to the next 20 minutes.
Thank you. I think Michael is just loading up the slides for you at the moment, so he'll be back with you shortly with the slides, I hope. If
Right,
not,
I don't have the slides.
You don't have the slides. Ah, we've got them. Brilliant.
Can you
the
see
choice
them
of
now?
tech, we're up and ready to go. Back over to you, Alan.
Great. Thanks very much. So we've taken a digital approach to this question, and our first bit is around what's our problem statement? What are we trying to solve in the area of helping job seekers with their career development? And really in the last year, we've really accelerated, as you've said, Caroline, and we'll look at what is digital can offer us in the employability space. As well as the tech side, at the end of the day, it's about individuals and their stories. So I think we've got a lovely story around one of our job seekers, Neil, that we've been working with in the last few months. And then focusing on that question about how we can use data and analytics, both at an individual level, but also across the board to show the impact that we can make and the change that we're bringing. Finishing off with the different critical success factors and takeaways. So our problem statement, if we go back just over a year, we very much believe that face-to-face, in-person is the best way to advise and support job seekers. And also recognise that a number of our job seekers don't have a laptop or internet access, or indeed the right digital skills to use those technologies. At the same time, we did have concerns. That doesn't apply for all job seekers. What about the younger ones that are coming through? Should we be doing something different for them? Should we be doing something digital? You know, and as a CIO, I quite often get asked, can you just give us an app, you know, as the answer? And there's also a big worry in organizations. Don't a lot of IT and digital projects fail? Can we actually deliver it effectively? And finally, when we think of our advisors, are they themselves confident in using digital? So if I go back just over a year, I'd say there was a digital hesitancy, you know, and that has clearly, as a result of COVID, been blown out the water. The first thing we did, we operate out of centres and we closed them all and asked our staff to work from home. And the first thing we found was actually the technology for working from home works, you know, and that was like a who knew moment, you know. So in my job, I thought, well, that's entirely possible, but most of the organisation disagreed with me until they tried it. And the experience really of working from home was largely dependent on people's broadband and home Wi-Fi. So that was good news story. So the advisors were quickly up and running, supporting job seekers using phone and email. And it was actually our advisors who were saying to us, as the leaders in the organisation, we need digital tools. You know, this just isn't sustainable. It's not enough on the phone and via email. We need a range of digital tools to really help us do our best for the job seekers. So that was our problem statement. We've got to do something about it. So we looked, you know, what digital solutions are out there and what does digital offer? And we'd already been working with Abintegra in a small way. And what would your take on this be, David? What do you think
well, thanks,
digital
Alan.
does offer in the
fully concur with
employability
everything you
space
said. And just, I guess, a little bit of context. So platforms for 22 years and for the last 13 years with Abintegra, the single focus has been on helping job seekers and students actually as part of a blended career development service, and working with people like Alan. But I would say, you know, the times have changed a lot, and if we go back, you know, many years ago, technology was certainly what I would sort of term as optional, soft and intangible, if you like, and increasingly, and over the course of the last few years, it's become mandatory, analytical, and measurable. So that's the sort of sea change, and I think, you know, there's a slightly different experience perhaps for academic providers and employability providers. So perhaps with academic providers, academic institutions, for example, with things like the Teaching Excellence Framework and the Gatsby benchmarks, etc. Technology has perhaps been put into focus for a few years now, and people have been sort of grappling with what to do. Whereas with employability providers, it was still in sort of the nice to have space, if you like, as Alan was describing. But COVID has totally and utterly changed that. And I think, Alan, coming back to your point, you know, absolutely, it's the advisors who have asked for tools to help them perform their duties, given that they can't physically see the people that they used to see. And then there's the question of scale and the question of how they react to the data that they're able to access and all that sort of stuff. So there's been a huge sort of sea change. But I think before we get into the series of slides, which we've just got a number of visuals that we're going to go through to show you how this works for Ingeus. I think the key point is that when it comes to digital and online, you can have the best, most incredible platform with all sorts of AI tools, and there's some wonderful things you can do to help people. But there's a true belief, and I know Alan and Ingeus as an organisation believe in this, that it has to be a blended solution in order to work. And if you go online only, then okay, you can help people, but the special kind of magic component is in that change management plan, and how do you actually blend it into a physical and a virtual proposition combined together. And that's the art of, I think, what we wanted to sort of convey on this session. Is that fair, Alan? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I'd say the first thing and where we started was, how can we make it really simple and easy for job seekers to get on the platform? You know, that's really critical to
yeah, I
get
think
the
so. And
uptake.
it sounds really silly.
Is there anything you'd add on that,
start
David?
with kind of you know, your online strategy, and I've seen many people do this in different ways. You know, how do you get people onto the platform? That's question number one. Question number two is, what data points are you going to take when they get onto the platform? So in the case of Ingeus, you know, the challenge for Alan's team was to look at what data they held on their CRM on their job seeker customers who they're trying to get back into work, and what fields of data would be useful to pass across to the platform they're using, which is the Abintegro platform, in order to configure the platform in the best way possible for the end users and to enable the reporting that's needed as well. So there's a whole kind of work stream around how do you get people into the platform and what data are you going to be providing in order to future-proof it. And so that it actually works and gives you what you need. Because if you need to be able to say, you know, a job seeker in Aberdeen who's interested in working in as a driver, for example, if you can consume some data from a CRM in that registration process, then when the end user logs in, you can make a number of different configuration decisions in an automated way to make that product better for the end user. And at the same time, when the reporting takes place in the end, then the advisors can look at that data.
And once they've logged on, we really wanted to sort of hit them in a way with a landing screen that would give them a number of options so they could dive straight in and start making use of the platform. And this might be in advance and ahead of their next conversation with their advisor once they've been sent the login credentials. So, and I know with Ingeus, we configured all of this specifically to the contracts that we're running and the cohort of individuals that we're working for as job seekers.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd add, David, on the initial landing page?
Knowledge transfer was for the end user job seeker, when they come into the platform, the idea is to work through some videos and e-learning on just the basic fundamentals of job hunting, CVs, interviewing, and lots of related topics, so that before they have that session with the advisor, they're better equipped. So that first session with the advisor isn't about basic knowledge transfer. Let's do that online. And so that's what kind of, you know, that was the Ingeus process. So that's kind of what their platform reflects. If we go to the next slide, Alan. So I think the other component that's important is trying to replicate, as well as that knowledge transfer piece, is trying to replicate what an advisor would do in a one-to-one capacity using the technology available. And this is where a lot of sort of AI comes in, if you like. So it's now possible to upload your CV into a platform. This is true in the Avintegra platform we're working on with Ingeus. You can upload a CV in and have it checked against 60 different checks. And it gives you your personalized responses against each of those checks to say whether you've passed that check or scored negatively against that check, and it gives some advice. And so what that enables kind of the Ingeus job seekers to do, obviously, is, again, before they speak to their advisor, and this is about that blended point, they come into the platform, they upload their CV, they get their score, they make some adjustments to their CV, upload it again and get another score. And they get that instant self-satisfaction of kind of going up in terms of their scores, hopefully, all being well. And we all know that's not the be all and end all. That's not going to give someone an optimized, perfect CV. So that's what the session with the advisor is all about. So in their CV session, it's much more focused, and they use that time much more productively because already some progress has been made. And if we go on to the next one.
And I know, well, David, I was going to say, we've got, 900 or so advisors in Ingeus, and they became competitive amongst themselves to get the best score before they started working with the job seekers, because it's actually quite fun.
Absolutely, and the same for interviewing. Oh God, there's a screenshot of me interviewing. I don't look very happy, but there we go. So after that interview, I mean, that question there, it says, from your CV, it appears you have strong programming skills. Tell me about a time when you've demonstrated these skills. What's going on there is, because I've uploaded my CV, it's then created an interview based on the content of my CV. And then after that interview, I'll receive artificial AI feedback on my my speed of speech, my language, how I repeat words, the amount of filler words, kind of I don't know, all that type of stuff. And so what's going on, again, this is preparing the job seeker for that session they're going to have with the advisor. And the advisor, because the integrations are in place, the advisor can see all of the usage data. So before they help their individual customer with interviewing skills, they're able to look and see what that individual has been able to do by when they've been kind of self-learning. So again, it's that blended approach that matters, because looking at that feedback by itself is fine, but having an advisor to interpret it and make recommendations is 5 times more powerful.
Thank you. And I'd say, I mean, personally, I was probably slightly more skeptical on the automated AI for interviews, but I was actually quite impressed how it did pick up on tone of voice and things like that, which are very relevant and, very useful to get that feedback, and in a way, in quite an objective fashion, because it's coming from the AI tool. So we're early days with this particular tool in implementing it, and I'll be fascinated to hear the feedback as we embed it more, from the job seekers and our advisors.
Okay, and just very quickly, only a few words on this. So part of that as well is enabling job seekers to start the job matching process prior to speaking to an advisor. So again, with all of the tracking in place, you can start to look at what jobs is an individual looking at, what search terms are they using, and the jobs that they're looking at, are they applying to them? Are they interested? Are they not interested? Are they waiting on offer? Have they been rejected? All that type of stuff. And again, this is kind of really invaluable stuff for an advisor who's going to spend time with that individual to have a sense of what's going on. Then obviously, if you look at a macro level, so for Alan's team, if they look at the West Midlands or a particular region of the country, they can start to get a sense at a macro level what do the majority of their customers or pockets of their customers actually want. Okay.
Yeah. And the next one is really critical for us in employability, is working out a learning program, effectively an action plan with the job seeker, between them and the advisor. And, the advisor, they're absolutely, totally Mr. Motivator types, but we also have to report on this, and we're on payment by results quite often as well. So being able to demonstrate the action plans that we're creating with the job seekers and the extent to which they're completed or otherwise, and helping and supporting the job seeker to complete an action plan is really critical, not just for the individual success, but for our success as an organisation.
No, that's good. I mean, that personalised, it's all about engaging the end user. It's so easy for an end user customer to kind of come online and glaze over and do a couple of things and click off and not come back. And so that personalisation, you know, is really, really important. Alan, did you want to add a quick word on live chat?
Yeah, so live chat, we use it in a couple of ways. We can use it on a one-to-one basis between the advisor and job seeker, but we also use it in group sessions. So people have different learning styles and they might enjoy the face-to-face, they might enjoy an online lesson, but also a group session around CVs, for example, is another way to engage the job seekers and learn in a different way. And the final one on the platform itself is just around the content. So there's lots of content, as you'd expect, around career development on the platform in video and PDF and all sorts of different formats. We've added some bespoke content ourselves. So in the Northwest, we had a particular need for a course around debt management, which isn't a core part of career development, but was relevant for our job seekers. So we've added our own e-learning courses. And in summary, that picks up the main areas. There is a nice YouTube video. If we share the slides later, you can have a quick look. And on the right-hand side, the bit that represents is you can access all of this on a mobile phone, a tablet, desktop, and what have you. I think that's really critical to get the take-up these days. Amongst the job seekers, they might only have a smartphone, but that is sufficient to make full use of all it has to offer. Moving on to one individual, so somebody called Neil, and we really started embedding this sort of last summer. So Neil was started working with us last summer after 3 years out of work, referred by the job centre, is been dealing with anxiety and depression increasingly. And I don't know of those who are joining us on the presentation this afternoon, but I had nearly a year out of work when I was a young man, and I found it a pretty miserable experience myself. So when he came to us, his CV was out of date, he wasn't getting interviews, and the first thing was his self-confidence was so low. And that's where the advisor was really critical in building up his confidence and self-esteem. And he does have good IT skills, Neil. So the advisor worked with Neil and encouraged him to make use of the iWorks platform. And you won't see it on the slide so much, but there's a breakdown of all the activities Neil used the platform for. So, for example, around interviews, he did a short course on curveball interview questions. You know, he uploaded his CV multiple times to get it rated, tweaked and re-rated, and he used the platform a lot for interview support. So included looking at a course on apprentice engineering, which is interesting because he then went on to do 3 interviews, and it was a fabricator welder apprenticeship offer that he took in the end, you know, and we're still in contact with Neil and is delighted to be on that apprenticeship, which was really, you know, good outcome. I mean, I think these individual stories, when we share them, it's what gets us out of the bed in the morning, isn't it, to do our jobs in this sector. So it's delighted that Neil was successful in that. Moving on to the analytics side. So we get a data for everything that we do. And this one is focusing more on the overall picture. So since we started last summer, it's actually 5th of May when we first switched it on, and we've been rolling out ever since. We've had 12,000 plus users on, over 345,000 activities, and it gives a breakdown by month, and you can drill in all manner of different ways. And if I move on to some takeaways from the last 6 months, we've had the average user completing 26 activities, and you can see it's a whole variety of e-learning courses, jobs they've viewed, CVs analysed, career assessments, interview simulations. And the third bullet from the bottom, the confidence average increase from 58 to 67% on completion of activities. That's a very useful, tangible number for us to understand. And not just take it at the top level, but be able to break that down and understand where is the person's confidence growing and where is it not growing. So where job search and interviewing are scoring lowest, that's a good steer for our advisors to say, well, they're getting, you know, a lot out of the platform, but they really need support in these areas. We can also see the CV score increasing, and it's this type of data at both the individual level and on all of the job seekers using the application that is really useful to us, both for the individual advisor, their team leader, but also the managers of the overall contract.
No, I think that's absolutely right.
Is there anything you'd add on the analytics, David?
You know, the numbers, the usage number and the confidence progression and CV scores increasing, and all that doesn't come unless there's that blended approach where the advisors are encouraging the end customers to actually utilize and adopt. The access point is really clear and visual, and there's a consistent reminder. So there's a communication plan going out, if you like. And in the case of Ingeus's customers, lots of them are on a kind of, you know, a documented formal plan, if you like. So they have to do certain things throughout their program of activity. So that's going to steer them towards certain activities. But I think my point was, and just wrapping up from Alan, is that it's that sort of management of the project that's absolutely key, because you can have an online platform, but it won't work unless there's that really clever management and plan that's put in place. And I think that it's very simply a 5-step plan is certainly what Ingeus have done, and what I've seen in many occasions, which is, one, get that integration right at the beginning, as in how do you get people in and what data points. 2, how do you configure it to reflect, to make sure it's a blended proposition and it's reflecting what you're doing offline. If you start with a CV workshop offline, typically before using online, and that's where you should start with your online as well. And you should line it up in a similar way. So that configuration is number 2. Number 3 is how you communicate it out to people, and that needs persistent energy. Number 4 is how you measure it, all of the analytics. And the most important one is, if you're going to measure it, you've got to do something with it. So actually act at the end. And like Alan was saying, having advisors actually look at the data and do something about it and respond. So that's kind of my, Alan, I probably went off piste a little bit there, but I think it's, you know, the data is the data, but it's to get that data is the challenge, as in to get a critical mass of people being really active and engaged and involved. That's the challenge, and that's what that kind of 5-step sort of management plan is all about, if you like.
Yeah, and for me, the experience has been the tech challenges have been minimal. You know, the only gotcha we had was the Apple Store takes longer to approve a mobile app than we'd anticipated. But other than that, that side of it's been relatively straightforward. So all the challenges are people challenges. They're people challenges with the advisors, you know, and they're sort of some embrace, some are a bit more reticent. They're people challenges in embedding it. But my takeaways are, you know, the mindset change that's needed has already happened. You know, there's been digital transformation has happened within career development and employability, but we've still got challenges in being inclusive. And it's not suitable for everybody, but also that digital poverty question, I think, is very real. I've got colleagues in London and the Northwest that are doing a fantastic job in arranging for laptops, plus internet access, plus skills training in digital for job seekers. And I think we've all got to ask ourselves, you know, what can we do? Because that digital exclusion in this hybrid post-COVID world is going to be ever more painful. So I think we've really got to help people get online as well as helping them be confident online. Internally in the organization, you do need only a small number of, you know, senior leaders are really behind this, and working in partnership is critical. You can't just put the solution in and hope it'll all take off. It's not a silver bullet. So yeah, we've had you know, weekly user adoption meetings since last summer. They're now fortnightly because we've reached that stage, but it does take that level of consistent, persistent focus and effort to really make a success of these things.
Thank you.
And that was it.
Thank you very much indeed, Alan and David.
Sharing and hand
really
back
interesting,
to yourself,
some really key things you're pulling out there. Obviously, if we can't get people onto the platform, then it's never going to make a difference. So that's our biggest challenge in a way, isn't it, in the sector, is the digital poverty, and then the digital skills, both for clients and for advisors potentially. I'm seeing a pile of comments up there for you that you might need to go back and answer. If you could please, about cost of platform, how do you access it? Somebody there just echoing digital poverty, a real problem. And I think probably our biggest challenge in many ways, isn't it? We will pick up and drill down into some of the things that you've identified there. Meanwhile, anybody who's on the call at the moment, if you'd like to put in your questions, anything more specific, please add those and keep adding those. And keep please using the hashtag today as well, which is hashtag CDI TechFest, so we can start to share good practice and spread the word about how technology, when you sprinkle really good career guidance with some supportive technology behind it, and whichever way around you want to drive it, advice, guidance, technology, tech driving people through to the support, but that whole piece about blended and pulling together, making a difference, please keep sharing that information. Thank you very much, both of you, for that. Please stay on here. We'll be coming back to you with some questions at the end of the session. We're going to the second of our third now, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Savraz, who is familiar to a lot of you. We were just talking before we went live with this, that Savraz and I feel like we know each other very well already through things like Twitter, but we never actually physically had a conversation until today. And maybe that's the point of this conference in many ways, isn't it? That you can make human connections even though you haven't physically met. So Savraz comes with a wealth of experience from the FE sector. Very impressed, Savraz. 24 years at Leicester College. That's a complete generation you've been working with.
Yeah, next year I think it's 25, and I've been, I think, 26 years in careers. And I think when I spoke to, obviously, you guys with Michael and stuff, you were a bit shocked. 26 years, so yeah, it's quite a lot.
Good for you. That's more than one generation. That's probably 2.5 generations, as if a generation was 10 years. And I know that you're an avid writer as well, and some people may be familiar with you in your writing, and a poet too. So maybe we'll have time for that in questions. Meanwhile, it's my absolute pleasure to hand over to you. You're going to talk about working towards a digital career service, your experiences of that. Over to you, Saf.
I'm just going to share the slides, of course. So
lovely, please do. And in the meantime, just get your typing fingers ready, people. If you've got questions for Safraz, I know he'd be delighted to answer them as well. And any themes that you see coming up, just as Safraz is sharing that, after this session, we will move to, after a short break, because Jan's going to do a roundup at the end of this panel, there'll be a short break, and then there will be the chance to pick up on any of the themes that you're interested in here in the open space area afterwards. So if there are particular themes that you want to have conversations around with anybody from the panel or with others in the community, please start to pop that sort of thing into the chat box, and then Michael and the team at the CDI will pull together some open space areas. And I already know that Annie Palmer from Skills Development Scotland is very kindly hosting one of the open space areas, talking about digital skills for supporting adults. So already that's starting to take shape. So now that Safraz, I've just seen my little prompt there pop in from Liz McGuire, love the colourful slides. So Safraz, it's a great way to introduce you and say, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be with you today. As I said, as I was introduced, I've had quite a lot of years of experience, and that experience has seen a lot of change. And what I will do today, and I hope to do today, is talk about how we are working towards a digital career service. And my first slide is the young little. Well, it's the little Giphy cartoon deciding between the traditional or the digital. So I thought that was quite interesting. Okay, so today's objectives, well, it's all about exploring traditional methods of careers guidance, because I think the audience will be coming from, a lot of them will be coming from that tradition of one-to-one guidance, and how this delivery has been transformed or can be made more effective through a digital service. So I'm going to be exploring digital technology and the way that it's changed careers guidance and practitioners' work. Discover the benefits of a digital service. Explore the impact, because that's very important, of a digital service in careers guidance. And look at how the world of work has changed. Look at also working practices for the future as well, because it's really nice to hear people talking about what the future will look like. So I will kind of have a look at that. Okay, so a bit of a recap to see how life was like before March 2020, and pretty much for an FE college in Leicester, one of the biggest in the UK, it was pretty much like this. So you know, you can see the little cartoon on the at the corner where it was one-to-one guidance, and you know, the young student coming and seeing us. We actually see people from outside as well. So it's not just all students; it's members of the public. We had open days, big open days where, you know, lots of stalls, lots of face-to-face contact. We did workshops, we did employability workshops, we did UCAS workshops, we did workshops for interviews, and so on. We did still have the email, and we did have the telephone as well, but it wasn't so used, if I can put it lightly. So it was there but not used. We also started developing, and we did successfully, school links work. And at one point, we were standing in front of a whole school delivering careers guidance. We worked with universities, and up to maybe, I would even go as far as saying 1,000 students. So it was massive, it was huge, and it was very face-to-face and contact. So how has this all changed? Well, this is what you're probably familiar with. Some of the issues that we had, obviously with the face-to-face, was we had lots of, well, to be honest, we had people waiting to be seen. So the long queue in the middle is people waiting to be seen. So on average, if you book to see me, you'd come in and you book an appointment, you won't get to see me until a week later, or in our busy period, maybe even 2 weeks. So that was a major issue. Because of that, and also I think people perhaps forgetting or whatever, we had lots of last minute cancellations and some people not turning up. Now, not to say that we were just sat there twiddling our thumbs, because that never ever happened, but it was just, you know, just an issue. So not everyone was turning up because of, I think, the wait. That actually led to a lot of anxiety for young students as well. I've had this, that's where you get the little person in the middle, a bit worried. And, you know, because they were waiting, I mean, you know, and they're worried. I mean, maybe they'd not heard from the college, or they had a course that wasn't suitable for them. So, you know, that needs to be dealt with quickly, and it wasn't. And also because of where we're based, we're a big college where we've got 3 big campuses right spread across Leicester city centre. Car park is not fantastic, and so on and so forth. So, you know, again, you know, getting to us was always an issue. Okay, so now let's go a year later, so March 2020, and we look to obviously our digital service. Now, the digital service came, we didn't really kind of just launch straight into this. It came in steps. So we had time to kind of put this together, I would say, before the results day, which was obviously that's August. So by the summer, we had got this tied down. So we set up an inquiry form, which is still on Leicester College's you know, websites. There's an inquiry form that anyone can fill out, and on there they actually put down, you know, how do you want to interact with the advisor? Do you want a telephone call? Do you want an email? Or do you want a Teams chat, video chat? And one of the posters is on the right hand side, which is a QR code, which is everywhere, so they can QR, you know, students can get the form from there. And just quite simply telling that obviously our service is available, very accessible, and you can actually book online. Okay, so another thing that we started to do as well, because we're a big college and we do a lot of group work, so we go into classes and do presentations. So that was a big dilemma. How are we going to do this in a lockdown situation, or in a, you know, in a COVID situation? Well, what we decided to do after some exploration, we decided to record our session. An example of is the UCAS session for HE. So we recorded that on Teams. The presentation came as an MP4 file. We put it onto Moodle, which is obviously the platform the students can access. They fill out a form, so we can monitor who's using it, and then they've got it. So they can download it, they can rewind it, they can access it. It's a bit like having a YouTube clip with all of us in there. And that's actually revolutioned the way that we did work in groups, because sometimes we'd be going into 10 groups saying the same thing over and over again. This has changed that particular dynamic. Okay. So also another aspect of the work that we do live streams. So talking with marketing had a big campaign over the summer where they did live streams. On the right hand side, you can see some of them. They're not all of them. I think all of them wouldn't fit on there, but we did live streams. Now, live streams are interesting, where You can see the picture of us all on there, but the live streams were really good because we tackled some of the issues that were, you know, a lot of the students and people out there were really worried about. And the interesting about live stream is they post, so people will watch it while obviously we're streaming live on Facebook Live. We also did YouTube, but also post afterwards. That's where the figures came in. They went into the thousands. I'm going to ask Michael now, Michael, you're there, to play some of the live stream video, please, so I can show the audience what it actually looks like.
Here we come.
Yep, is it on?
Yep. Don't have sound yet. But we do have 5 smiling looking faces. It's not partway there.
Are we there, Michael? Got sound? No.
Could you provide us some links for later that we might be able to?
Yes, I will do. Don't worry, I will do. It's a shame that we haven't got time. So, Michael, we'll just crack on, I think. Yeah? Okay. Okay, we'll crack on. Okay, just to let you guys know, you can actually go on, if you go onto YouTube and just type Leicester College.
They're going to be talking to you today about their tactics for staying productive during lockdown. So hopefully this will give you a bit of motivation and encouragement to keep things going during lockdown and find ways that you can help further your career and your own personal development. So I'm going to hand you over to Safraz, who's going to kick things off for you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, so good morning, first of all, and welcome to our 4th live career session, focusing on top tips that you can do whilst we're in the lockdown period. By now, some of you would have adjusted and quite well and would have developed some sort of daily routine. But for others, you may still be in that early adjustment phase. But whatever your situation, it's important to use this time effectively and also to ensure that you look after your mental, physical health and well-being. Now, once you return to the new normal, whatever that's going to look like, it's highly that you're going to be asked one fundamental question, and that is, how have you used your time in lockdown? Now, your answer will inform people like employers, training providers, course tutors, and it actually tells a lot about you and the kind of person you are, but also the skills that you have or you're going to develop. Okay, Michael, so yeah, if you just stop it there, yeah. Okay, now that was interesting. I could hear my voice. It's interesting to hear your own voice. But that was done. That was actually run in June last year, and obviously that was the height of the pandemic and the height of the anxiety for a lot of people. So that was great to have that kind of out there, and that's still on YouTube. People still access it and they can still watch it and get information from it. Okay, so let's look at the benefits of a digital service. So obviously we're all using Teams, Zoom and so on, but we're using Teams to do video chat with young people and adults as well. I mean, on Friday I did a Teams video chat with a young person and his dad. Young person I know has got some additional needs. So having his dad right next to him, being at home, took away that anxiety and that worry. The other things as well, we can also, through Teams, we can actually do we also do follow-up emails. So the way it works, we speak with the young person while we're speaking on the conversation piece. We could put in websites and information there and then afterwards we send them a comprehensive email as well. The service is very accessible. We found that people have really embraced it. They're not waiting 2 weeks or a week. In fact, it's a 48-hour turnaround, but our turnaround is less than 7 hours. Customer service, our customer service team don't book the appointments. The career appointments come straight to the advisor, taking that kind of pressure off that team. We're not seeing any no-shows. People that book appointments really want to see us, and yeah, so we're not seeing anyone that doesn't turn up. It might be the odd one here and there, but nothing to what we were seeing. We're reaching a wider audience. We could not believe that there were live streams were going into thousands and people were watching it. It was amazing. We got recorded presentations, as I mentioned. We also developed the Moodle site. Being at home and working from home allowed us to work really productively and working on things like Moodle. Moodle is a platform that's used in obviously colleges. You guys might use it themselves, but it's an intranet where we've got a career site, and there we've actually put all our videos, downloadable links, and so on. We found also that using a digital service, we got parental engagement, and also we also get involved in EHCP reviews, education healthcare plan reviews with people with additional needs. So sometimes a social worker's there, a parent's there, and so you can bring in a lot of people into that interaction. We found the response is quick. We found we are more productive, and the feedback has been great. We've not had anything negative to say about this approach at all. So there are lots of benefits to it. Just very quickly compare that to a traditional service. So, so the digital career service is actually my left. So it's using digital platforms such as Teams and face-to-face appointments, telephone and emails. Traditional is face-to-face in interview rooms, telephone, and we use email as well. Live streams can reach a wider audience. Our recorded presentations are available to view later. Our group works that we did traditionally were done there and then in assemblies and classrooms, and that was it. It's a one hit, and if you missed it, you missed out. Recorded group works can reach a wide audience and downloadable and on variable platforms, especially for young people on YouTube and different devices. And classroom delivery can be time consuming and reduces the ability to reach a wide audience. Obviously, working in the digital service, we can work remotely. We can work from home, giving us flexibility. We also found that we could do a lot of things in the evenings. Sometimes, well, we've done quite a few last week where we did some presentations at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Because we were at home, nobody was really worried about going home or traffic or anything like that. And Careers Advisor are office-based using interview rooms. And the last bit here is clients do not have to come into the career centre for a digital service, and obviously they have to for a traditional. That actually we found for anxiety, for worry, for stress, for any issues, including if someone's at school, you know, that was always an issue for us. But now they come home and they could do the face-to-face there and then. So 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, we are available. Okay, so the impact. Well, the number of people we've seen has doubled, and actually in some cases tripled. So for example, in March last year was 60 people we saw. In 2019 it was 160, and this year to date, and it's not finished really, has it? March is still carrying on. It was 270 people, and that just shows you the impact. The service is customer focused and responsive to their needs. Technology is used at every step, increasing the IT competence of careers advisors. So that was obviously an issue for all of us, especially our live streams compared to our first live stream compared to the last one was very, 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 very different. So you could see how we were quite nervous and apprehensive. But now, because we've been using the technology for a year, we have become more competent. Actually, this is an interesting point. Digital career service and accessing digital technologies actually prepares a young person for the digital world of work. They are not going to go into a world of work that's going to be the one that we knew in the office. Digital technology is going to be enhanced and used in the world of work. And finally, it gives careers advisors flexibility to come work, and they can work remotely, increasing productivity. And I think that's a key point that's come out of this particular journey, that careers advisors as practitioners can work remotely as well. And hopefully the employer should kind of allow them to do so. I wanted to kind of, in a way, come to the last slides and put some sort of kind of a national sort of more of a global perspective on this. So the bigger picture. So the reality is the world of work is changing. Now, as Carolyn said, I am a careers writer, and I've written a huge amount about the world of work, the future of work, how that's changed, and how it is changing. And I think as careers advisors, we need to be on the cusp of that change. We need to be thinking ahead of that. So change the way that we communicate and access information, gives careers advisors greater options in how they work and communicate. And changes in technology have made life easier. Okay, so I've got another video. And the video is all about the 5 trends that are changing the way that we work. And it's interesting because this is the article that I wrote was based on this little clip. So, Michael, if you want to play it.
Going on in the world of work, some kind of a evolution that's forcing organizations to think differently about what it means to be an employee or a manager, and even what it means to actually work. There are 5 trends that are causing this evolution to happen. 5 trends that are forcing organizations to challenge everything they know about work. These 5 trends are globalization, mobility, millennials and changing demographics, new behaviors, and technology. Globalization is causing the world to become like one giant city. The language that you speak, the culture that you subscribe to, the currency that you transact in, and where you are physically located are all starting to matter much less. This means that organizations can tap into talent anywhere in the world. Mobility is allowing us to stay connected to people and information anytime, anywhere, and on any device. This means that work is no longer a place you go to, it's something that you carry with you in your pocket wherever you are. Millennials are expected to comprise 50% of the workforce by 2020 and 75% of the workforce by 2025. Millennials are digital natives that expect and want to work in ways that reflect the year we live in. Most people live in 2015, but work at companies that operate like they are in 1975. Although millennials are driving enormous organizational change, it's important to remember that the future employee is anyone that is changing their behavior and mindset to adapt to the changing workforce. This means it doesn't matter if that person is 22 or 62. New behaviors are rapidly entering our organizations. For example, we are all comfortable living a more public life. We share our thoughts in blogs, post reviews on Yelp, have our entire professional history on LinkedIn, share pictures on Instagram, rant on Twitter, and engage in open conversations on Facebook. In fact, virtually every aspect of business behavior has changed, including the way we share, communicate, collaborate, teach, learn, find information, access technology, and create content. This is forcing organizations to fundamentally rethink and reimagine the way we work. Technologies such as big data, wearable devices, collaboration platforms, the Internet of Things, and cloud computing are enabling us to work in new ways while keeping us more engaged and productive. In the future of work, technology is the central nervous system of the organization that enables everything else to function. Together, these 5 trends, combined with an unprecedented war for talent, is forcing organizations to shift their mentality from creating a place where they assume employees need to work there to creating an environment where employees want to work there. When we think about the future of work, the organizations that can most effectively make this shift from need to want are the ones who will be able to attract and retain top talent. This means that if your organization doesn't think about and plan for the future of work, then your organization will have no future.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's interesting. It's interesting that clip was obviously before COVID, yes, and that's actually from obviously a big article and a big study that was done about the changing world of work, and it's linked to the 4th Industrial Revolution. But it's interesting to some of the themes of this particular conference today for the TechFest. Technology is in the heart, is integral to everyday lives. I'm just going to end with a kind of a wrap up, just to talk about how we as a service are looking to go forward. And it's interesting because a lot of the themes and a lot of the things that people were talking about, I've actually got on this slide. So I'm actually quite pleased with that. So we're looking to offer a digital and face-to-face service by combining a blended approach. So not sticking to one side, not just the digital, but also offering the one-to-one, obviously safely and within guidelines. The impact will be measured through continuous monitoring and feedback and positive outcomes. And finally, as the world around us changes, and it is changing, and it has changed, career services and advisors need to adapt. And it's that adaptation that obviously is quite interesting, the change to meet the needs of the client. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and I will try and answer any of your comments.
Thank you very much, Sarfaraz. Fascinating stuff. And it's good to see the Industry 4.0 still in there, because I think COVID came along and became the new thing everybody focused and talked about. And it just was an enabler for Industry 4.0 to move along the bus faster. And I think we ignore that at our peril, actually. So thank you for contextualising, putting that back in there. There are some questions for you in the chat if you could pop into those. And of course, Sarfaraz will be around later on when we get to the sort of plenary conversation part of this. Meanwhile, to our third and by no means least final speaker, David from Scotland. David is a senior policy advisor for Skills Development Scotland, and I know that we had an interesting conversation the other day. He sits in the intersection between IT on one side and practitioner on the other, making everybody work together and actually having everybody around the table to have those conversations. So I think it'd be really interesting to hear your national perspective on the work that you've been doing for citizens of Scotland through Skills Development Scotland. Delighted to introduce you, David. Over to you.
Thanks very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a delight to be here, and it's good to hear the other presenters talking about their work. There are many parallels and many common themes that is encouraging, and also it gives us a great opportunity for taking forward the development of all of this thinking. So it's good to be part of that. Just a quick reminder about Skills Development Scotland and who we are. So we're a non-departmental public body formed in 2008 from 4 predecessor organisations. Our main responsibilities include providing careers advice to all pupils in the 350 or so state schools in Scotland. Also, we offer careers information, advice and guidance to any post-school adults at any stage in their life that want to access that service. And we're also responsible for apprenticeship funding and the funding of a number of other employability interventions. So our main operational footprint, if you like, is with the younger generation. But for reasons that I'll come on to, that's changing slightly. What I want to do is I want to share with you some of the journey that we're on as an organisation and the services that we're developing as an organisation. So this first diagram shows the evolution of our main customer-facing website along the top of the slide from its launch in 2011, when it was very much a magazine style, not very interactive catalogue of resources, if you like. The technology was outsourced to a contractor, and at the time it was very much just pushing content out towards primarily young people. There were a number of policy developments, which you see along the bottom of the slide, which have driven change in our offer. In 2012, there was a national CIAG strategy agreed, and a career management skills framework was also signed off by Scottish Government, Education Scotland and ourselves. And that CMS framework sets the tone, structure and content of how we deliver career management skills to all of our customers. We did a major upgrade on My World of Work in 2016, or at least it was launched in 2016. It took a while to do it. We brought the platform in-house. We did stronger analytics on users and on traffic. And we started to embed APIs and other more clever pieces of kit into it. In 2015, there was also another shift in policy. We launched a program, a strategy nationally called Developing the Young Workforce, and that encouraged us to make more specific offers to primary age pupils and to post-school adults. And now we're working on upgrading the platform once again to make it much more responsive, to do better enhanced reporting, much more personalization, and give people many more facilities whilst they're in and using it. And give you a sense of scale on that. Annually, we get about 200,000 users creating an account, and there are a much larger number of people browsing the site, but 200,000 new accounts are created every year. And around, in a typical month, around 2,500 post-school adults would create an account. And we know that by dint of the date of birth information and employment status information that they submit at the point of registration. The new registrations have dipped slightly since the pandemic started, but are starting to come back up again a bit. So that's looking back. That's the kind of archaeology of the service. And we've recently been doing some vision work to try and set out the principles for the journey going forward. And so, as you can see on the bullets there, it's about allowing people to master the skills they need to manage their career, trying to make use of the service a good habit, try and make it a regular feature of their career development and career action. And inspiring, supporting, making people feel confident. This idea of improving confidence, which we've heard a lot about in earlier presentations, is an important concept for us. And also, there was talk earlier of gamification and of making it familiar and attractive, and making it something that people choose to use will be a strong feature as well. And we want advocates from both across the education estate, the employability world, parents, carers, and everybody to know and understand what the service can offer. So in terms of taking steps towards that vision, we've started pursuing that by differentiating the experience for primary students, secondary students, and adults. And I'll say a wee bit more about the adult work shortly. We're very focused on impact. So we have done a bit of work around the logic models, impact frameworks, and the evaluation approach that we will take. And new content is being developed, which is very user focused. So it's written specifically for user groups, customer groups, rather than generic material, which wasn't testing well with our users. And then from a technology perspective, we're also starting now to build tools and functions as microservices that we can reuse. So there's a lot of apps embedded in the service. So come on to the adult proposition. Now, we started talking seriously about this at the end of 2019. So before the pandemic kicked in, we responding to all of the demographic and economic trends that we've been hearing about today, and in the case of Scotland, particularly an aging population and some degree of depopulation in the rural areas. So you've got population issues, you've got changing technology, you've got changes in the global economy, all driving us to a position where workforce reskilling, workforce upskilling really needs to become more center stage in policy terms. And our digital platform has a role to play in that. It's a cost efficient way of scaling up and serving more people with little incremental cost. So what we want to do is we want to create functionality within My World of Work that makes it a go-to tool for adults to get the most out of their career. So you can see that the bullet points, we can click through to a real person. There is the ability to share functionality across the services we develop. We want to give people a real world view of other folks' industries and experience. And you can see there the other characteristics of what we want to do. We've launched an initial version of that adult service just in January of this year. Actually, our journey to that was quite complicated, as I'm sure you can imagine, over the last year. We had the design sessions in February 2020. We wrote the business case in March 2020, and then suddenly the world turned upside down, and we had to reconfigure the organisation, and we had to service the careers guidance needs of students in 350 schools overnight, as when schools shut in March, and then reopened again in August and then closed again in December. So it's been a bit of a year for our frontline staff. And during the course of that year, we made a start on this beta site, which contains adult-specific content, and you can see here on the screenshot of the homepage how we're referring people to it through the banner at the top and through the content block at the bottom. It's inviting people to try a new additional service, and we're still experiencing large volumes of adults using the main site, and now we're starting to get some traffic through the new beta site. And as we go forward, I'll maybe say a wee bit more about what we plan to do next. So that's how it looks when you go to it, and it's just myworldofwork.co.uk. Although the adult material, if for the more tech savvy amongst you, if you go there, you'll see it's on a subdomain. It's built differently, but the user won't know that. We built it for 3 specific audiences at the beginning. When we did the design sprint in February last year, we had On Shift for Survival, the at-risk worker, and the motivated changemaker as our key personas, based on user research which we did, talking to real-life customers about how they looked for and digested careers information, and we worked up those 3 personas. Motivated changemakers are the ones who come to us anyway. They're people who are looking for a new job, or looking for promotion, or looking for learning opportunities. The other 2 personas, On Shift for Survival, are people extremely unmotivated to change, no self-belief about changing their career, and not particularly motivated at work. And the at-risk worker is, as you can imagine, folk who work in retail or other sectors which are particularly vulnerable because of those wider economic changes. So they have a motivation to act, but perhaps little knowledge about how to act. Because of the pandemic, we added the 4th persona of the unexpected unemployed for obvious reasons. With the now extended job retention furlough scheme, we didn't get in October last year a spike in redundancies that we were expecting, but it will still happen at some point quite soon. And I'll say a wee bit more about services specifically for people who've been made redundant in a little minute. And just in terms of marketing terms, obviously the 2 middle personas are the really tricky ones to engage. If you think about adults who've not typically used our services because they went through the careers process before we existed, and who are not particularly motivated to engage with kind of advisory services. So we're doing a lot of marketing through, well, we're experimenting. We're using Facebook adverts, we're using Spotify adverts, we're using a variety of things to try and get a kind of level of micro-targeting through that means, and that's actually proven quite successful. I'll take you through the kind of idealized high-level customer journey. I mean, it doesn't, in actual fact, work in a linear way like this, but it's just to give you a sense of what we're trying to do. So we want to drive people to browse through the marketing campaigns I've just described, and to do so, and what we want to see is that sessions get longer, people undertake more of the tools on the site, indeed on the main My World of Work site and on the new subdomain. We want people to register. We want to drive people through to the point of registration And it's an interesting one because a complex registration process will clearly put people off. But actually we want quite a lot of data. So we're just testing how much you ask for at the point of registration. And we're going to cross-match the registration data with the customer database that we have for our traditional careers centre and school-based work. So if it's an existing customer, we can link the data. And we want people to come back and use it again. As I said before, we want this to be something people are motivated to use. It's a bit like TripAdvisor or Pinterest or something that people are kind of familiar with and want to use. And there are different ways in which they can participate. So we're building a skills discovery tool. You'll be familiar with the work of the World Economic Forum and McKinsey looking at the methodology for looking comparing job transitions, looking at feasible journeys. And Nesta have actually done some really good work on this recently. So we're building a tool that's going to do that. With the version 1 of it, which is on the site now, allows you to input job titles for jobs you've done, and it will give you a skills report letting you know the kinds of transferable skills, meta skills in our language, and that comes from those jobs. And that's basically an ONET lookup and match that was done there. We're also building at the moment an appointment booking system, which again is a quite a complex piece of technology because it requires our website and our customer support system to interact, but people will be able to on the website book that kind of phone call, Teams call appointment with a careers advisor. And when they take up that opportunity and get their Teams call or phone call, they'll be able to share a space with the advisor. The advisor and the customer can both make notes, make plans in a shared space, and that's then emailed to the customer or downloaded as a PDF and stored in the customer record afterwards. There is a course search site, course search function on the site, and we're developing that, expanding it, making it smarter, and also we're doing a proof of concept around whether a chatbot can support that. I mentioned redundancy. So the Scottish Government have a national redundancy strategy called PACE, which is Partnership Action for Continuing Employment. There are 24 organisations in the partnership, and SDS are the ones who front up most of the one-to-one and one-to-many customer interactions. Historically, we would have gone out to factories and workplaces and done presentations to the staff, worked with management, put special careers fairs together and so on, but clearly that's not possible at the moment. So we are standing up some digital equivalents. Helpline, that's an obvious one. There's a national media campaign, and we also get HR1 notifications from government when a large-scale redundancy is announced, and so we can drive people through the media campaigns to our helpline. We've also set up a programme of webinars now running several times a week with content from ourselves, but also from the Pension Service, HMRC, DWP, and many others. And that is starting to really build volume. And we're in the process of finalising the use of an events platform like the one we're all on today for job fairs and careers events. And we'll be able to do them regionally or thematically as we develop that capacity. And finally, we are working with our partners in PACE to develop a diagnostic, a self-completion redundancy checklist, which allows the user to answer some questions about their situation, and then they'll get a personalised and localised set of links and references to other services that are available and relevant for them. Also in the pipeline, a career health check tool, although we won't call it that. That's not that name doesn't test well with users. It's a self-completion tool which will allow people to get where they are in terms of their confidence against our career management skills framework nationally. We will upgrade the skills discovery tool with the additional functions I described about proximity of alternative jobs. And we're going to use our Burning Glass license to build an LMI widget, which allows people to look at, where they live, what they earn, what opportunities there are in their local area, which are growth occupations, which are occupations in decline. So a kind of labour market explorer tool, using fairly standard API structures. And to enhance the PACE work, we are thinking of setting up some social media channels, possibly a LinkedIn group, possibly other things for customers who are going through the redundancy process. It's very common, actually, for people in a workplace, when there's an announcement made that the workplace is going to have large-scale redundancies, it's very common for them to start either a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group to support each other, and we want to use those kind of technologies to support that process. So we're just doing some exploratory work around that at the moment. All of what I've described is supported by a number of other complementary strategies. So there's an evaluation plan. We're doing pop-up on the website, pop-up surveys on the website, and we'll follow that up in the autumn with a phone survey. We've done an equalities impact assessment and an equalities action plan, and we'll be reaching out to specialist organisations to help us ensure that the service is accessible and relevant. And we're also looking at the data analytics that we can do. Folk earlier have talked about the importance of analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we are looking at building a machine learning function that will sit underneath this, working with the very basic data. It all sits on a Microsoft Azure platform, and it will be a kind of machine learning algorithm will be developed, and we will see, as we get more user traffic, how we can use that machine learning to personalize content further. So there's quite a lot of above the line and below the line activity. I'm going to stop there, conscious of time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, David. I feel like I've done a whistle-stop tour of the whole of Scotland. We've talked about partnerships and frameworks and customisation and surveys and impact and all sorts of real and machine learning and all sorts of other things as well. Thank you very much. And I think it's really important to say to the panel at this point, you've given us lots and lots of great content. As you've been talking, I have been sitting here scribbling, and I have got, that's one of the good things about being at home doing this, I've got a desk full of sheets of paper like this with lots of pink blobs all over the place. And I think what I think would be a useful thing for us to do, I've been looking at some of the questions coming through. There are some specifics, by the way, for David. Just keep an eye, or everybody just keep an eye on and make sure you answered all the questions that are directly for you in the chat box. But I just wanted to start with the question of advisors, because we've heard about advisors, clients, technology and impact, so the four themes that have come through all the way through this. So if we just start with advisors, I'm really interested in your opinions, and everybody else will be, to understand where you've made such a dramatic shift, how your advisors have been in terms of, did they need more skills that they had to develop? How did they feel about changes to working patterns? And how do they feel about any changes that might have happened, if they have, to the relationships and the way they build relationships with clients now that they're doing it online rather than in the way we used to do things back in what seems like an ice age ago. So that question about advisors, how have they responded, what are their needs, and what have they discovered? Who's going to kick me off with that one? If you will put your mics on, that would save me using that inveterate phrase, you're on mute. Alan, your hand went up. Thank you for that.
I can make a start. I think the fascinating thing here is it's almost gone full circle. So to begin with, at lockdown, it was people working from home. Could they adapt to working from home and digital ways of working? And, actually our experience was people got to grips with that pretty quickly. We've also then picked up in the chat about the digital fatigue. I think just is a massive problem, massive problem. And I'm not entirely sure what to do about it other than get outside for long walks as much as we possibly can, because it's, you know, so I'm really looking forward to when we go to a more hybrid way of working, you know. And the other fascinating switch now is we're starting to open our centres for face-to-face work with job seekers from April onwards. And it's getting people to come back to the office now. They've adjusted a year of working from home and they don't entirely like it. But actually, there's a reticence about traveling on public transport and coming back to the office and seeing people face to face. And not everybody's vaccinated. So it's almost gone full circle in our experience. People have adapted to the digital ways of working. There are certainly the digital fatigues are definitely an issue that really needs to be sorted out for all of us. And then getting people to, I think it's going to be a gradual thing now, you know, but actually once people start to work in a hybrid way, sometimes at the centre, sometimes from home, you know, hopefully we'll find the right balance is what I'd say, Caroline.
Thank you, Alan. And that bit about digital fatigue, there's actually research that's come out now that I know CDI has shared recently, which talks around how our brains are really struggling with it because we're used to seeing in 3 dimension, not 1 dimension, and we're not used to seeing ourselves all the time. So that's one of the things that's causing us fatigue. And maybe the clue is actually turn our faces off when we're listening. A bit difficult to do that when you're on a panel, isn't it? So let me go to David in Scotland. How have your advisors responded? And what do you see as any needs, that anything around sort of the client relationship and how they feel that may have changed or may have gained from moving into this more digital space?
Okay, I'll say a couple of things about advisors. First of all, as you mentioned in your introduction, we have had advisors at the heart of developing this new service. Right at the beginning, I put out a call across the organisation for careers advisors and personal advisors to volunteer to get involved in helping us design and then test what we were doing. So when we were still able to do it, I ran a couple of events, one in Dundee, one in Glasgow, for staff to brainstorm through these ideas, what good looks like for an adult customer. And that was really, really invaluable. Obviously, we've been doing that online since, but we had 5 advisors working with the digital team, attending the techie stand-up meetings with all the software developers and stuff, and that was really interesting process. We've still got a group of staff who help write content, who help test things. I see Anna Parma's on the call today, and she's in regular meetings with the software developers and so on. So that's been embedded in the development process and has been really welcome. The advisors I know have had a difficult time, particularly with coming out of school, trying to work with young people by phone. We don't, for safety reasons, use video calls with school-age pupils. Young people, and I know this from having 3 daughters, young people don't like talking on the phone. So it's really challenging, and still learning with how to do all of that stuff.
Thank you, David. Safraz, can I just ask you, have you had a unilateral enjoyment of embracing things like live streams, or have people gone, I don't really want to do that, and have you had to coach them over the line?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the live stream is absolutely scary. It's absolutely. I think for an advisor, it depends. I mean, the thing is, I think it's just because I was asked this question a few times, and the answer to the question is, the answer is yes. It was scary. It was frightening. It was a big learning curve. I think for a lot of advisors who are not aware of the social digital world of seeing yourself and engaging with YouTube and Facebook and all that, then it is really, really difficult. Luckily, and it is just sheer luck that my 4 advisors, my team, are kind of embraced it. To be honest, we went for it. We embraced it. It was a massive learning curve. I mean, if you look at some of the live streams, I mean, people go, "Oh, they're very slick. They're very cool." What it taught us is production, media, scripting, editing, all of that. I mean, that was it's just a learning curve. I mean, the group works that we do, the MP4, when we record them, they drop down to MP4 files. They have to be edited. Can you believe that? Careers advisors editing, it's just madness.
I feel the pain of actually some of that myself, so I totally get that one. And I think that makes the point, doesn't it, that as careers advisors, careers professionals, we are not able just to stand still. We have to upskill in every area, in particular in digital. So, and that leads me on to the next part, really. I wanted to just turn, if we could, because I'm keeping an eye on time here, to the sense of engaging clients, because that's come up as a theme. You know, we've got digital fatigue for us and for them. And I know certainly some of the work I do with FE's HE, the level of engagement when it comes to sort of, oh no, not another Teams or Zoom, has dipped somewhat. So I was interested to hear David talking about Facebook ads and Spotify to stimulate engagement. And I'd be really interested to hear from all of you as to what suggestions you have for those of us who are desperately trying to engage young people into take part in stuff online, because it's not just good for them, it is vital to them. What sort of tips and techniques would you share that have worked for you to actually leverage people into those sessions? Who's going to kick me off?
Caroline, yeah.
I might do David in a minute.
This question was asked in the chat just about just when I was talking, and I think, especially from an FE college or an institution, you do need the buy-in. If they're a tutorial group, if, say, for example, they're a hairdresser group and they're having a career session, you need the buy-in from the tutor. You need the tutor to be there, to be supporting and advocating and actually building it up as well, to say, look, this is an integral part of your course. And you do need that buy-in from the top down. And parents as well, you just do need that. I mean, the other thing is as well, what we found, it's all about timing, but if you can also get like a text message or a message to the young person, you know, your interview is in 10 minutes or your interview is tomorrow or whatever, to build that momentum up. It does help, but it just needs a lot of people around you that are supporting that and making that career session something that is part of the overall program, if you know what I mean. So it's not a bolt-on, it's not something extra, it's actually part of what your enrichment is and your entitlement is. So I think that's where I'm coming from with it.
Thank you. And it's quite amazing, isn't it, that, you know, we spend 50 years of our life these days working, and it takes 5/7 of our working week, and yet we add it as a bolt-on. We have to sort of go, surely we have to make sure, and I know there are moves, certainly I've heard from Scotland, I know in Wales, that careers are embedded in. We've got Gatsby doing that in England as well. I'm interested to understand a bit more about how you flick the switch with technology, if you can, from a I have to, in the case of some clients, to a want to, because that's a little bit of the golden, I'm trying to find the words, the sort of the magic that we need sometimes in careers work. So how could we use technology to make this a want to rather than need to? And it might be you're going to start talking about gamification, I don't know, but if you can just also have a think about how you'd answer that.
Yeah, Carolyn, I've got a point on that, a couple of points. First one is, if we look at we track everything on the platform, and you can learn a lot. So obviously from when you monitor and see what people are doing. So, you know, we get about 10 million activities completed on the platform each year from 1 million users, mainly in the UK. So when you look at what's actually happening on the platform, you can start to make sense of what people want to do and why they engage and why they come into the platform. And without a doubt, something that gives them a score or a result is infinitely more attractive than something else. So if you line up an amazing course on this is going to, you know, revolutionize your negotiation skills, that's kind of fine. And it's just going to tell them that they've finished it, tick, well done. That's fine. But if you can give them something that gives them an actual score afterwards, or, you know, like a personality assessment or something like that, or something that's using AI to give them something that they can get stuck into and have another go at. So I think that's really important for making it a want to have, a want to use resource. The other way to look at it, and this is true in Ingius's sector, but it's also true in lots of HE institutions who have truly got employability embedded in the curriculum, and perhaps it's part of a credit-bearing module or something like that. If your end users are actually registered via an platform, then they and communication is sent out to them, and they have to do something anyway. So that's kind of the other end of the scale, if you like, where usage is actually mandated and people are put onto the platform. They're told they have to do something. In which case, when you look at the usage charts, obviously they're going immediately spiking up the day before the deadline is due, then flatlining back down a bit, then up again like that. So the job is to actually flatline it out a little bit.
So stick and carrot seems to be very much the activities here. We've got people who want to do things because they like to achieve. And if you look at Martin Seligman's theory of PERMA, achievement is something common to all of us, along with meaning and the other elements. And then we have those that have to because they're told to. And somewhere between the two is, I think, the truth, isn't it? If such a thing exists. And talking about truth, because I've seen Jan's joined us, I'm going to pass over to Jan in a minute for the end of day one summary. But before I do, I just would like to raise something that came up a few times I saw in the chat box around AI, and that sense of I think with AI there's some questions, aren't there, potentially around how much does the system control what we see, or does the AI govern what we see, and how much does that limit or open up opportunity in a way that if they were talking to a person, somebody might come up with something totally different rather than something that is networked close and has close links through tech itself. So interested to understand how tech informs, opens up and might restrict choice. Any thoughts around that?
And I'll go back to David Hurd because he's our expert on these things. But I'd say from the practitioner perspective, definitely still both is better. I wouldn't really encourage any of our job seekers just to rely on the AI tools on the platform and not engage with an advisor as well, whether it's a CV AI tool or the interview AI tool. I do think the interaction with the advisor, in combination is the optimum answer. I don't know, David, what your thoughts are, David Hurd?
I think you're right, and particularly when it comes to things like career choices. So, looking at the language on someone's CV or interview responses, and then or even a personality test, and saying, hey, you know what, you should, or a theme park entertainer or whatever it may be. It's quite a sort of. You've got to be really careful with that sort of stuff. So I think blended is always best in that respect. And also there's lots of positioning that's required. So if you're going to use AI, you kind of almost need to explain the clear caveats on screen as to what's going on. And you know what, if you don't like this feedback, that's okay, because what the AI is doing is this, that, and the other. It's not, it's not a judgment on you as a character and whether you're a good or bad or person or whatever it may be. It's just, this is what's going on. So take those results and choose to use them if you want. I think the positioning is important.
Fabulous. One very last 30 seconds from each of you before I hand over to Jan. 5 years on, what are we going to be talking about in this space?
Well, I hope we're not replaced by robots. Would be
That's the elephant in the room. Lots of people didn't dare ask. Okay, Marcus, thanks for that, Alan. David, set up in Scotland, you look like you had I want to say something there.
Well, you've got to wonder about the future of commercial property in city centres, I think, because all the points about commuting and things hold completely valid, particularly in daylight today when it's a force 8 gale outside the house. No, but seriously, I think one of the many things that this experience will teach us all is the realness of the future of work. So the video that we saw from Sarfraz, that is happening now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any last words from anybody who hasn't spoken? Or are we able to hand over to Gran?
I think, Carolyn, just on that last one, I hear quite a lot about the hyper-connected career journey. So from a very young age through to retirement, having your kind of, your portfolio of everything that's gone on. Imagine LinkedIn on, just times 50. So for example, if you're an employee in a company and you take an e-learning course that's part of your learning management system on, cyber security or whatever it may be, that's actually being put into your career portfolio and it's there publicly available, all your digital badging and everything like that. But so that's one example, and there are many other examples from kind of education through to retirement where you're capturing all of that and it's visible, all kind of collated together.
Thank you very much. I think that's a perfect note to go. Thank you very much, panel. All four of you have really contributed richly. I know everybody's really appreciated that. Feedback very welcome, both for the poll that I know Michael's posted and ad hoc feedback welcome too. My chance to do a final shout out, Careers Wales tomorrow at 11:50 are doing a session on digital delivery in Wales, which includes Careercraft, for which they won a Career Development Award only in a few weeks ago. Gosh, it seems like years ago, but it was only a few weeks ago, several Zooms before. That's my time to to go. I think I definitely need a cup of tea now. You guys certainly have, because you've given us a treat this afternoon. And it's time for me to hand over to Jan, who's going to do a wrap up on day one before we go into the open tables. And there are 3 of those. Jan, do you have details? That Michael's very happily posted those. Thank you. Your mind reading there, Michael. The tables for the open session are in the chat box. Jan, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carolyn, and everybody who took part in the panel this afternoon. I suppose I'm a bit like the continuity act today, trying to weave everything together that we've all heard about this morning. And we started with the big picture vision for digital career development. If you were here at the beginning this morning, I said career education and guidance is a public policy issue. It is, and so we felt it was really important that we heard from 2 of the larger providers in England, the National Career Service. I thought we got really good value from them because we had 4 different speakers in 25 minutes and they crammed a lot in, talking about developments for the National Career Service and how they're moving forward with their virtual platforms. And then John Yarham from the Careers and Enterprise Company gave us a really good overview of the main areas they're working in with the Compass Plus tool and Skills Finder and other things that they're looking on developing. And I think the challenge is for young people this year is making sure that everybody, particularly in England, where we've got much more patchy service than we have in Scotland and Wales, where we've got national career service providers, that everybody has access to talk to and engage with online, by phone, however they wish, but to talk to a professionally qualified career advisor. And then we had some wonderful seminars. I hope you were able to take part in some of those. They're all being recorded. They'll all be on the website as recordings, and some industry insight talks. I stayed to hear a bit of the Moresby one and some of FledgeLink, and it was really interesting to hear about those new products in this digital space. And there will be a repeat of that insight talks tomorrow, different providers, but we'll continue that theme of running in parallel seminar sessions and the insight talks. And then this afternoon, exhibition for people to visit, and also the opportunity to hear from our great 3 different speakers this afternoon. So thank you very much for that. The formal part of today is over, but as Michael's shown in the chat, we're starting a new theme in this afternoon, which are these open space meetings. People have come forward today saying they'd like to talk about particular things. They've been engaged about what they've heard about in this new blended new normal that we work in, the blend between digital and face-to-face guidance. And there are people there who would like to share their immediate thoughts and ideas. So really easy to go and join. We've called them tables, but there'll be separate rooms and have those discussions with colleagues. And it's a way of networking through our interactive platform this afternoon. So I want to say thank you to our keynote speakers. There'll be a little break so that you can get refreshed, and then we'll come back to those open space tabletop meetings. And then tomorrow we'll start again, where the focus will be very much in the keynote plenary around artificial intelligence and career guidance. And we'll be having presentations there from Dr. Deirdre Hughes, about the chatbot project she was working on with the Port of Nesta, Kartik Sharma from Magneto, and Reese Herriot from the Career Tech Challenge. So that will be the morning tomorrow, and then the seminars and insight talks, as I mentioned. So finally, thank you for everybody who's taken part in the formal aspects of the conference today. And we'll move now into the informal. And I think if anybody's got an idea for what next, I'd love a glossary of all the fantastic terms we've learned about today, something that's really accessible, that immediately tells us what personalization, gamification, APIs all are for the uninitiated. But that, perhaps someone will take me up on that tomorrow. Thank you very much for taking part today, and enjoy the remainder of the sessions this afternoon. And we'll see you bright and early for 9:30 tomorrow morning start. Thank you.